characteristics will prevent founders from ever hitting $1 million months?
One of the number one characteristics of success is just being resourceful, being able to take whatever's currently available to you and making the best of it in order to grow to that next level of opportunity. Some people choose to play life like a person who hits $1 million months. And again, the characteristics of that type of individual is wildly different from the guy or girl that only hits a couple $100,000 a month. Beliefs and data are what drive behavior. So the wrong people, they have all these like up beliefs and up worldviews, and they feed themselves data that inhibits growth.
Do you believe that business owners, founders that are not using long-form style content are leaving money on the table?
The businesses that have the highest friction right now are not leveraging content, whether it be short form, long form, but long form especially.
How long can it take to get to $1 million months?
In most instances.
Welcome back to another episode of Founders Playbook. Today is a good one. I flew literally to the other side of the planet to get a conversation today with this man. Today's guest has helped over 41 businesses hit $1 million months. He's arguably one of the best paid advertisers of all time. He's the marketing guru behind some of your favorite personal brands and influencers. He's the founder and CEO of Megalodon Marketing, an 8-figure entrepreneur himself. And he's here to share with us today how to scale to $1 million months, which, let me clarify for him, your chances of hitting $10 million a year, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, is 0.1%. That means that you have 99.9% of not hitting 10 million per year, like let alone 12 million per year. But my hope is that today, at the end of this conversation, you might be slightly better equipped and increase your chances of hitting $1 million months. Please welcome the legend, the incredible, Mr. Jeremy Haynes.
Very good earnings disclaimer there. Yeah, and necessary too, you know. A lot of people think they got it and they just don't, you know. People have a wide range of variables that hold them back from ever hitting $1 million months. And I'm happy to go through all those here today and the top lessons we've seen time and time again that do help people get there. Where do you want to start?
Let's just cut straight to the noise. What does it take to hit $1 million months?
Yeah, I like to say it takes 3 things. So number one, it obviously all starts with a great offer. We've seen time and time again, like every key statistic that actually matters. I'll give you a great example. Cost per call, cost per webinar registrant, cost per purchase if you're running a low ticket to high ticket offer. The subsequent statistics like show rates, close rates, you know, second call booking rates if you're running 2 call closes. Like every single individual statistic is influenced by the offer more so than anything else. So when we see somebody that has something that just hits super hard in that current market, and I'll give you a good example, like literally right now while we sit here and talk, AI is currently the hot topic. If you go on Google Trends and you compare most of what you think is big against literally just the letters AI, you'll see that whatever you currently think is big as a Google trend just gets squashed to like the very bottom of the graph comparatively. And that level of interest and that level of excitement in a specific niche, as you could imagine, creates a lot of excitement for people when it comes to offers that could potentially help them with things. So think about, as an example, like opt-in rates or purchase rates, conversion rates, close rates, show rates, et cetera, for anything AI related. It has, in most instances, give or take who you are, a very, very strong set of stats. So it typically all starts there. That alone can be a huge proponent of something that can get you there quicker. In addition to offer, kind of like a subsequent point of offer is pricing. So I'll give you a great example. If you had a $100,000 offer, you only need 10 people to buy in order to hit $1 million a month. We had a guy, he was at a $50,000 price point. We spent a little over $25K in ad spend in the first 30 days. By the way, it's a hyper unrealistic set of expectations I'm about to set. This happened one time in my decade plus career as an advertiser, just to disclose. Spent a little over $25K and he did a little over $2 million in the first 30 days, but he had a $50,000 offer. So as impressive as that sounds, that was like under 40 buyers, right? And when you look at just how math works, obviously, if I sold something that was $100 by comparison and I wanted to hit $1 million a month, it becomes that much harder, right? In comparison, if I go bigger on the actual price of whatever it is that I'm selling, just makes it that much easier. Package that with a great offer, makes a world of a difference. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, it does.
Yep. In addition to that, there's 2 other points, which are the sales and marketing side of things and then the actual staff that are a part of the deal itself. So from a sales and marketing perspective, I believe that these two are conjoined. I don't separate them out. I don't do the sales versus marketing beef that most people do. I think they're directly correlated to one another. The success of the sales team is largely due to the success of the marketing team to bring in a good financially qualified, well-framed lead, which can be done through content-first ad strategies or back-end selling systems or a combination of both. There's a lot of marketers out there who are very negligent to that influence that they have over the sales team's performance. Instead, they just point their finger when a sales team does bad.
It's the easiest thing to do, right?
Yeah, it is. It is very easy to blame others. And then vice versa. You obviously have to have great salespeople too. If you have a super shitty sales team, you're going to have a bad time regardless of how qualified and well-framed those leads are. Everything is it all runs together, it all runs together. Finally, A players in the organization. Without A players a part of the team, you typically run slower. Everything becomes much more political. The bureaucracy within the organization grinds you down to a pace where it's very easy for competitors to come in and outspend you and therefore out-earn you, minimize your overall impact within that niche and industry, reduce your revenue. There's a lot that I can sit here and attribute towards just A player talent in organizations that can make or break deals. I'll give you a great example. A lot of times people come to us, they're around like a couple $100K, or sometimes they even already hit $1 million a month. They're looking to hit the next $1 million a month. And you look at their team and the justifications that they make, AKA the beliefs that they project onto the business's potential, are the limitation. Like, I can come in and look at the marketing. I can come in and look at the statistics that the sales team's currently running. I can look at the offer, and you don't necessarily always find something that's wrong. Sometimes it's just the narrative side of things, which is typically spun up by people, right? Like, you don't look at a set of statistics and have it tell you a specific narrative in most instances. You can conclude to a different narrative than what I can about that. And then you share that amongst each other, and it becomes like a collective belief. That alone can limit potential, or can vice versa, with a great set of players in the organization, A players specifically, drive revenue through the roof by direct comparison. So those are the big three: offer, sales and marketing, and then having A players in the team. That, in my opinion, can make or break a $1 million a month deal straight away.
Those three things that you mentioned are definitely key. And the first one I love, which is something that you talk consistently, which is attaching yourself to the grand narrative, AI being one of those. We have a client that actually, when we first started with him, he was all around e-commerce, Amazon specifically, which is a trend that, as you know, has been dropping down consistently over the last decade, right?
That's
and
true.
it was pushing shit uphill, trying to basically get him to make great money out of the content strategy that we were putting together for him. And at some point we switched to Bitcoin because he's a heavy investor himself. And he's like, guys, I don't want to do it. E-commerce. He's an 8-figure entrepreneur. He doesn't care as much for the money in itself. Yeah. And then we just switched everything to SMSF Bitcoin, which is essentially like the equivalent to the 401k, I think as you guys call it. And dude, the growth has been insane. Just because the grand narrative right now with Bitcoin is insane, right?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. To your point, I mean, we have a few guys that we help inside of the Amazon space that are in our Inner Circle program, and they've had a lot more success after they join in and like adapt what they're currently doing, or attach what they're currently doing to something else that has a higher level of interest. There's a guy also in the Inner Circle. He might be coming this weekend, by the way, to the mastermind. His name's Brooke. And, Brooke joined into the mastermind, to be fair, already doing more than $2 million a month. So he was already very well off, but I can't stress it enough. He joined in teaching e-commerce, but he teaches e-commerce and paired it with AI. So like everything that he teaches and talks about is how to leverage AI to make getting into e-com easier. And as a result of that, it's like you can take something else, arguably, like as an example, Amazon by itself, all on its lonesome, not that appealing anymore. But same exact logic, like you attach it to some other grand narrative, naturally it's going to perform a lot better. You don't always have to take what you do and completely pivot out of it when you're looking, like he doesn't have to completely go away from Amazon. He could arguably still make that work, but he has to attach it to something that people currently give a fuck about. Yeah, we had that same thing. Another Inner Circle member, I won't say his name because honestly, I think this one would be a little more obvious for people that might be watching, and I don't want to air out his business like that, but long story short, this guy was teaching copywriting, and he was around initially at, I think his peaks, like 600K a month organically. And he had seen that get cut in half as AI grew. Because think about it, one of the first real use cases that a lot of people saw evidence for with these LLMs that came out was copywriting. And this guy in particular, as a teacher of that, he was selling against using AI. He was like, no, you need to learn this skill. Like, you need to know how to do it. This makes so much more sense to have in your head rather than using as a tool that's going to, I told him, he sat down at lunch with me one day and I said, I think this is such a mistake for you to sell against it. I think this is going to be a new all-time high for your revenue if instead of selling against it, you sell with it and attach what you're doing. Like, show people how much easier it is now to be able to have AI work with you in your copywriting organization. Just sell with it rather than against it. And he went home, didn't take him long at all, which a huge characteristic of success, by the way. He got right back up to 600K within about 2 months of that time frame. So again, imagine your revenue just getting chopped in half from selling against a trend, and then you flip it and you sell into a trend, and your revenue just goes right back to where it was. Last month, he had a record month, to be clear. That was several months after that lunch that I had with him. I'm not sure the exact amount of time that had passed, but he had gone just shy $800,000 within that next month.
That's so good.
It was great, but yeah, never sell against a trend. I'll tell you that right now.
Don't fight
absolutely fuck you.
Go towards the trend, right?
Yeah.
In terms of time frames to hit $1 million months, on your experience, what's the average? Let's say a business already is at 100K months. Yeah. How long does it take on average with all those three things that you mentioned previously? If you get them right, how long can it take to get to $1 million months?
It's hard to even put a time frame to it because of how wide the range truly is. Sometimes I've seen people, as I mentioned, in the most extreme case that's happened a literal singular time that I've witnessed was a month, which again, I would never project that expectation onto somebody. In most instances, it can take a good few years, give or take the individual skill set and those other three variables, like where your offer currently sits. Sometimes it's just market centric, like you're just in a tiny niche with not a lot of potential. You don't always have any probability. I mean, remember, like just like you opened up this specific show with in this case, I mean, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, they run those numbers against every single business that exists and has existed for how many of them have reported hitting a revenue number greater than 10 mil. And that number at 10 million was 0.1%, dude. It's like when you use Purell and you have a 99.99% probability of getting rid of those germs and whatever's on your hands, it's like, technically, you have a slightly better chance than Purell because it's not 0.01, it's 0.1. But still, I mean, those are pretty fucked up odds. So anyway, for the ones that do hit it, some of them do it in like under a year. Some of them, it takes a good like couple years of just grinding through lessons. The issue is the speed in which you solve problems, more so than almost anything else, is what dictates the speed in which you grow. So most organizations, they really undermine that specific characteristic and they tolerate problems far longer than they should. Even the ones, to be fair, that have like a high level of aggression towards attacking problems, they don't always overcome it fast because, look, you don't know what you don't know. So at the end of the day, you can try everything that you're aware of to overcome a specific plateau. But dude, I mean, you might stay stuck there for a fair bit of time. And depending, again, to be clear, on your speed and willingness to like spend some money on figuring out that problem or bringing in new people to help solve the problem or investing into the awareness that you might lack to help solve the problem and unlock new thinking dictates how long you stay stuck. I've had guys, I remember one of our longtime Inner Circle members, his name was Josh. And dude, when he joined in, he was at 300K a month for just shy of 3 years. It's like 2 years and like 8 months, I think he told me when he joined in, he was stuck at 300K a month. Why was that guy stuck at that range for that long of a period of time? It's just tolerance of a specific set of issues or a main issue that was preventing the additional revenue from rolling in. And if you don't have really strong reasons to hit $1 million months and like really get your business up to a big level, I mean, why are you going to give a fuck to solve the problem faster than you otherwise could? You know, you're just going to kind of sit there and be comfortable and complacent with where you're at. He lived in some like random area of the United States, like call it like a tier 2 or tier 3 city, somewhere that, you know, just didn't really bring your potential out. You know, he didn't have like a platoon of people around him that tried to like push him and keep him accountable to growing. And listen to this, when he first joined into that group, He got to 500K a month within a few months because I was immediately up his ass trying to just give him some solid reasons that were believable to him for why he needed the additional money. And then two, really, and this is one of the most important parts, just making him intolerable of sitting there at that level and trying to push up to that next level. Now, to be fair, that guy never cracked $1 million months. You know, sometimes on your way there, like I just articulated, you hit these plateaus and not only will you be tolerable of whatever holds you back, you'll enjoy it, you know, because your life, let's be honest, improves exponentially between even 300K a month and 500K a month. You could start flying around on little private jets. You might not be taking the heavy jets like the Gulfstreams and the Bombardiers and Falcons and all that, but you know, you're gonna be able to fly like on turboprops and light jets and maybe even a mid-size here and there. But the quality of life that you have, I mean, you're not going to anywhere you could think of and really looking at the price. You can buy most people's dream watches any given month that you want, depending on your expenses, of course. But you know, this guy's expenses were fairly low in his business. I mean, you could invest a tremendous amount as well. You can invest a pretty life-changing amount of money at a pretty consistent pace at 500K a month. And again, like you set yourself up for a really good retirement to where you're easily able to look at your life at even, to be fair, even less than 500K a month and just say, what the fuck do I really need the additional money for? So a lot of people unknowingly to themselves, like they'll hit these plateaus as they continue to climb the mountain. And rather than turning it into a game of expanding on your potential and, you know, bringing that next version out of yourself and applying importance to the additional money you do bring in, you just kind of get stuck and you're happy to be there too, you know? So it really depends on the individual. You know, there's a lot of things that can hold you back. But anyway, long story short, due to those variables, it's really hard to define a time frame. You know, it's really hard to say like, oh yeah, on average it takes X. Because at the end of the day, I only have the sample size of the industries that we've actively worked in to consider too. So I'm not sure. I mean, I really don't know. I don't think there is an answer, to be fair. And if there is, I sure as hell don't know.
You often break down the characteristics of people that will be in the best position to hit $1 million months, right?
Yeah.
I want to flip it now because
sure.
you also were breaking down some of those. What characteristics will prevent founders from ever hitting $1 million months?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much do the exact opposite, right? So characteristics of people who are generally impoverished, number one, they're not resourceful at all. One of the number one characteristics of success is just being resourceful, being able to take whatever's currently available to you and making the best of it in order to grow to that next level of opportunity. Speed. So as I mentioned, if you have willingness to solve problems extremely quickly, you typically have a lot of earning potential in most instances, dependent upon the problems that you're solving, because you still need to solve revenue-driven problems. And people who stay stuck and like don't ever fucking have a chance to hit $1 million months, they do busy work. They never take high impact revenue driven actions. You know, they'll prioritize just a bunch of bullshit that doesn't actually make money. You know, feel good about that type of work too. There's nothing worse than priding yourself on non-revenue driven actions that you solve or take. I think that is, you know, when you're in a for-profit business, obviously you're there to make a fuckload of money, right? And when you lose that mission and you just like do work to like feel like you got some shit done, you know, to get that like satisfaction and that dopamine rush of completing cycles. I mean, you better make sure they're revenue-driven cycles. Anyway, go super slow. That'll always fuck you up. Work with a bunch of B and C players. Yeah, just work with a bunch of fucking idiots that like don't care about revenue and don't prioritize revenue and don't really care about making a fuckload more money. Work with people who intentionally try to slow things down. Those are the worst fucking types of people to have in your organization. And have a willingness, like I said, to just have all the tolerance in the world for these kinds of things. Like, don't have anybody that pushes you to a greater level. Justify your current position financially, like act like you have enough money is a great way to stay stuck. I had a guy, sometimes I tell people, you know, as pretentious as this might sound, I have people that join into things like my Inner Circle program where I get like one-on-one talks with them. And I had a guy just joined in. It's my first call with the guy. And he's making about 140K a month. He's barely scraping the minimum to even qualify to be in there. And he tells me when we're talking about like why he needs to make some more money, I was like, you know, so what are the reasons? Like, why do you need more money? Why do you want to hit $1 million months? And he's telling me some reasons. And then he gets to the point where he slipped in a random belief where he was like, I just recently hit my highest month, my highest income month I've ever had. And I don't know, I just felt like, money didn't really do anything extra for me. It kind of made me question if, I needed more money or not. And then he kind of like glazed over it and like was talking about some other random stuff. And I went right back to that and I attacked the fuck out of it. And I was like, dude, how in the world do you expect to make more money if you don't have good, proper, to yourself, highly believable reasons to get the additional cash? And, obviously bringing him to that self-awareness made him kind of rectify that belief and change it on the spot and, come up with new reasons. Like I talked to him, he's 26 years old. And I was talking to him about retirement. I was like, have you ever even done math and looked at a compound interest calculator of how much you need to invest per month? And I asked him, I was like, when do you realistically no longer want to work for active income? And he was like, I don't know, probably sometime in my 40s. And I was like, all right, let's say you give yourself 20 years. Let's say you wanted to no longer, just whether you want to work or not, at 47, let's say, 20 full years from now, give yourself a couple months before you turn 27, you give yourself a full 20 years. If you looked at, we have in the United States, this website called investor.gov, and there's a compound interest calculator on it that the SEC provides to, investors and people who just want to make sense of how compounded returns work. We have a collection of 500 different companies that interchange, give or take their performance, called the S&P 500. It's an index fund. And if you look up the most recent 20 years as an example of the S&P's 500's average annual return, it's about 10%, right? And if you looked at investing about 10K a month, so if you invest 10K right now and you invested 10K a month for that full 20 years, every month for 20 years in a row, and you got an annualized return of 10%, and you don't even factor in inflation into this, okay? You just look at what your portfolio would turn into, 10K a month for 20 years in a row that you invest. If you only gave yourself 20 years, it comes out to like a little less than $7 million. It's like 6 million and some change that you're realistically going to get. And then from there, you don't go live from that point. Like the average person in the United States, we've actually had a pretty unfortunate trend recently where we die earlier than the rest of the countries around the world. But I digress. The point I'm trying to make is like, let's say he lived into his 80s. Okay, so he needed like another full 40 years to be able to live off that money. There's a golden rule inside of finance where it's called the 4% rule. So as an example, let's say that he only had that like $6-something million in his late 40s at 47 to be able to live off of the rest of his life. Well, the golden rule that's been handed down by every person who talks seriously about money for ages that I'm aware of is this 4% rule. So that would mean every year he sells 4% of his portfolio. You then have long-term capital gains tax here in the United States, currently sits at about 20%. So that 4% off of that $6-something million minus 20% of the capital gains taxes every time he sells that 4% leaves him with like maybe thousands of dollars a month. And I asked him, I was like, how much money do you spend right now each month? And he was like, maybe like 15 to 20K a month. And I was like, dude, you wouldn't even be able to currently afford how you live right
Your
now.
current
like,
lifestyle.
Like, is this how you want to live when you're like in your 40s after working for 20 fucking years? Like, is this really all you want your life to be worth? And to be fair to some people who have just a smaller life that they're willing to live, like the answer is yeah. It's like, no, I'd be fine. I'm happy to live that way. To others who would, as a preference, I was like, dude, are you going to have kids? Like, how do you think that looks? Like, do you think you're going to need more money for them between then and now? Do you think that when you're in your 40s and your kids are like just about to maybe have grandchildren or like are just getting out of school realistically, like do you want to go visit them? Do you want to fly economy when you fly? Like, you want to stay in like a shitty hotel or like a random guest room or on a couch that they might have for you in their apartment at the time? Do you want to like do anything greater than that? Like, do you want to drive like Toyotas and Hondas the rest of your life? Do you have anything grander than that in terms of ambitions? And, very quickly he started to realize, he was like, yeah, I mean, my God. And I told him, I was like, to be fair, if you gave yourself a full another 10 years, so if you invested from 27 until 57, that same 10K a month, it turns into about 19.9 million, if I remember the math correctly. And long story short, it's like, that's a substantial difference, but that's a full another decade of investing 10K a month and working, which I told him, I was like, look, maybe you'll have willingness to do that. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll be out of your earning window. Maybe you won't even have the potential to earn the way that you currently earn. And you're going to have to adapt a completely different skill set at that later age. You know, have you ever seen somebody who's older, how they behave when they have to adapt to a completely new skill set? It's like there's generally a very, very low willingness from those types of people to make serious change to their careers. And I was like, dude, you ever heard of like pro athletes that go broke after they've made tens of millions of dollars in their career? It's because they don't think about their earning window. They don't maximize the potential that they have during this unknown to them period of time where they're probable to make their most money. And during that window, they don't invest a fuckload of it. So come time when they're out of their earning window, it's like they're fucked, you know, they rugged themselves. So I was telling him, I was like, as an example of, you know, why that belief that he articulated was going to absolutely fuck him. I was like, dude, like, think about that. Like, no, you need so much more money. I was like, go into that compound interest calculator and just throw in some bigger numbers than 10K a month and look at the 4% rule and look at the amount of time and, you know, determine like how serious you actually need to take just investing alone, you know? And I gave him another example. I talked to him about recently I won't say specifically who, I don't want to embarrass him, you know, I don't know if they'll feel embarrassed about me talking about it, but a very close family member to me had come to me recently, and they're older, and they were like, I want to retire, and I want to learn how to trade. And you know, through the inner circle. Do you know Sean? Have you ever met Sean?
Oh, I don't think so.
Anyway, we have I think he was literally the first person who ever joined in. His name's Sean, and he had talked to me a long time ago about this. It was called prop firms, and at first when he talked about it, I thought he was full of shit. He was saying he's making like $400K a month off these prop firms. And long story short, like, just to summarize what it is, you pay to like show you're a good trader, and then they let you trade like fake money technically, but they'll pay you real money on what you earn because of the fact that they're paying you with what all the people who fail pay them. So like when you fail these accounts, they have willingness to give you that money because apparently it's like a really low statistic of how many people actually make it to the point where they're going to actually have to pay like people real money. Well, anyway, I was one of those very few people that got paid real money. I got to a point, it was April of 2023 and October of 2024, I had invested into these accounts to like prove I'm a good trader and like failing them hundreds of times. I literally had like, I think like 2,000 of these like fucking accounts from how many times I'd failed 20 at a time. So it might sound like a lot, but I actually failed upwards of like 60, maybe like low 70s. And anyway, I digress. The point I'm trying to make is I spent about 80 something thousand dollars, and I made just over $1 million. And I got paid the $1 million. It was like $1,088,500, I think, is what the 1099 that they gave me was. Anyway, the family member had come to me because they were aware that I had like done a little trading, and I was telling them, I was like, yeah, it really doesn't take that long, you know, wasn't taking me that much time in a day to like do it. And I'd felt like I'd kind of cracked like a good strategy with these like liquidity strategies that I was using. And anyway, the family member comes to me and they were like, I want to learn how to do that. Like, I want to learn how to trade. So I was like, yeah, dude, fly out to Miami. Like, I'll teach you. I'll show you how over a few days and like send you back home, see if you do good with it. Dude, when that person showed up, I had thought they wanted to trade just to make some extra cash, right? Well, the real reason that they wanted to learn how to trade was because they were in a financially fucked position in their 60s. In America, we have this system that we invest into our whole life called the Social Security system. And it's honestly a very terrible financial return, but like regardless, it's meant to take care of people who make it to like 65 plus. And I think you get a little, honestly, I've never even studied how much Social Security pays you because I've heard my whole life that it's going to run out by the time that I'm actually 60 and like eligible for it. And I'm under the impression it's like fucking barely any money anyway. But it's like the net, you know, it's like the last fucking financial net that you have before you're just homeless and old. So anyway, he didn't even know how little money it was. It was like he was going to get like $2,000 a month USD in Social Security, and he needed about $3,000-ish a month to be able to like just live the way he was currently living. And he wasn't living in a big city. He was living in a very small city here in America, and in like a random state that's like not expensive. And this guy in particular, like, he takes care of one of my key family members. And he needed a back surgery. So he had to retire because he needed a back surgery. Okay. And he just couldn't really work anymore. And if he retired, he was going to be financially fucked because he hadn't invested enough. In that 401k thing you were talking about, he only invested about 500K in his lifetime into that 401k. And if you did the 4% rule on 500K, I think it's literally like $1,000 something. I think it's like $1,600 a month or something like that. So between the Social Security and between the 4% rule on his 500K 401k balance, he would have been fucking cooked, dude. He would have been fucked. So I just want to be fair in saying, just so nobody calls me an asshole since I'm rich, I did put the guy on payroll too. I gave him 5K a month. And again, the point I was trying to make with this guy I was talking to in the inner circle, I was like, look, dude, I did teach this guy how to trade, and he's actually done quite well with it, to be fair. And let me disclose, I do not teach people how to fucking trade, okay? I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to plug trading. I actually think it's very unrealistic for most people to make any fucking money trading, and it's really stressful too. But he is doing good with it, to be fair. Completely separate point though. I tell the guy that I'm on this call with in the inner circle, I was like, dude, think about that. Like outside of the money that you need to do the math on to retire, think about like if a family member one day that you care about comes to you and says, I need a surgery that's going to cost money. He takes care of a key family member of mine. And because they would both have like been down and out, because the other one's disabled. One family member's disabled and the one would be disabled after a surgery for about 6 weeks. I called a at-home nurse company in their area, $20,000 for 18 hours a day for 6 weeks is how much it cost to get a nurse at their home for 18 hours a day to take care of those two while he's disabled for 6 weeks recovering from his surgery. 5K a month in payroll just to make sure the guy's comfortable taking care of my family member and taking care of himself. And I told the guy I'm talking to in the inner circle, I'm like, bro, think about that. It's like, do you think I like financially modeled that out in my life and thought that that was going to be a reason I need to make more money?
Factor into the expenses.
Or like, dude, like think about this. Like the guy's 60, now I'm paying him 5K a month. Let's say he lives another 20 years. Okay, like I'm right now sitting to you, I'm in my early 30s while I'm sitting here talking, I'm 31. It's like, dog, if he lives another 20, let's say even 30 years, that's into my 50s and 60s when I'm now paying that guy 5K a month. It's like, think about that. Imagine me having to go to him one day and be like, hey, sorry, dude, like not making enough anymore to give you 5 G's a month. Like, you know, get fucked. It's like, dude, that's not how it works. I'll probably have to increase the amount I pay that guy through time due to inflation and how that works out with eroding our buying power. But the emphasis I'm trying to make clear is, like most people think it's like you justify making more money from just materialistic shit. Like you go buy like watches and like cars and like, you know, fucking sick penthouses like the things I have. It's like, don't get me wrong, those are cool as fuck too, and you definitely should buy those because they're great. But at the same time, it's like the more serious stuff. Like how long are you gonna have to work for active income? What's your life gonna look like after your earning window is fucking cooked and you don't have the willingness to adapt to a modern skill set that's in demand? What are you gonna do when your family comes to you and is like, hey man, I need some help? And it's like a serious situation where you're going to feel like shit knowing you could have earned more and you could have helped them. And you just say, sorry, I'm not in the position to be able to take care of you. I had a random person, my fiance called me and told me this one day when she was taking my dog. I have 3 little wiener dogs. And dude, by the way, they'll be at the house when you're there. You'll get to meet them. And anyway, she was taking one of them to the vet. And as soon as she walked into the vet, there's this girl in there just bawling her fucking eyes out. And her and the receptionist lady and a vet that were there were like talking. And apparently this lady didn't have a couple grand to be able to like save her dog's life. Like they needed to resuscitate the dog. And I don't remember what other the specific thing they needed to do, but like it was like a life-saving thing that cost a couple G's. Long story short, this girl didn't have the money. And she was sitting there like literally, if she couldn't be able to afford that, which she couldn't, her dog was going to die. Like, dude, thank God my fiance walked in that exact moment. And she goes, don't worry, like, we'll take care of it. And it's like, dude, in that exact moment, I saved some random dog I never even got to see or meet from some helpless lady who hadn't factored that kind of situation into her life. You know, financial security goes well beyond just stuff. The stuff is cool. And in my opinion, I also think important. But at the same time, it's like, you know, people have these beliefs like, oh, I made a little bit more money and, you know, I didn't really like feel any additional impact. It's like, no, dude, You just don't understand the reasons in which you need a fuckload more money beyond what you had just made in your, record month, making barely a fucking 140 grand, So anyway, very important you understand, like the wrong people, what they do is they omit the power of money in their life and how it controls every single decision that they make. It determines literally everything. Where they live determines the speed of their internet. Every single fucking device and thing in their home is determined by money. The choices they get to make or not make are determined by money. How you travel. Like, dude, I saw you had flexed on your story there. You got to fly business class from Australia over here to Miami. It's like, to the average viewer watching this, do the math on that for what that cost, It's not that crazy in terms of cost, but it's like, I'll tell you what, imagine flying that amount of time in economy back there. I bet that would have been a wildly different experience for you, huh?
Yeah, dude, it felt like a life hack, and you know why I appreciate it way more probably than most people that get to do that. First of all, I was the youngest person in there, aside from two babies that were on board. I was the youngest person in there, so that felt pretty good.
Besides two babies, you said?
Yeah, there was two babies, but other than that, I was the third youngest person in there, so that felt pretty fucking awesome, right? And the second part to it is that on my own experience, I come from nothing. I come from Venezuela, a third world country, average income family. I was always told we're poor, we can't afford things.
Yeah.
So I've been working on my own money beliefs for almost a decade at this point, and now being able to do that, man, it felt freaking awesome. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and like listen to this, right? The wrong people, I think, stay attached to the wrong identities for too long too, right? Like now imagine, like you were just saying, third world country, family your entire life projected onto you that you're financially fucked and don't get the power to make choices relative to the money that you don't have. It's like you've chosen through time, whether you're aware of it or not. Some people do this intentionally and some people do this subconsciously. They will adapt their identity relative to the next level that they want to bring out of themselves and a new set of circumstances that they want to actualize. You have to intentionally create an identity that is beneficial to what types of results you want to pull out of yourself and achieve in life. Most people, when you talk about like the wrong people who don't ever fucking stand a chance to hit $1 million months, it's like just like that guy. If he didn't have the ability to overcome that belief that he brought up of like, oh yeah, I made a little extra money and like had my biggest month and I didn't really feel like, it was that great. It's like, well, no, that's not going to serve you at all. There's no benefit to whatever the fuck version of you is saying that. And a lot of people don't realize, like your Grand Theft Auto character is how I always frame it to make it easy for people to understand. Like you can choose every single fucking characteristic that you currently think is your identity. And every single one of them that's not beneficial to your growth, you can strip away and you could change and you could adapt and you could be literally anything and everything that you could picture in your mind. There's people out there who pretend to be dogs. You've seen those crazy fucking videos and it's like, they'll do things like wear collars and eat fucking dog food and something. It's like, well, they're choosing to play life like a dog, Some people choose to play life like a person who hits $1 million months. And again, the characteristics of that type of individual is wildly different from the guy or girl that only hits, a couple $100,000 a month or tens of thousands a month or fucking just a regular person working a job, So the wrong people, they don't adapt to that mindset and worldview. Instead, they believe they are who they are and they try to carry that forward with them all the way up. They try to have a set of characteristics that they believe are their identity. And as a result of that attachment, they stay stuck and plateau and have tremendous friction. It's like driving with the fucking e-brake pulled. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work. Slows the car down, makes it wildly inefficient. The right characteristics adapted to oneself is truly a determining characteristic of somebody who does make a fuckload of money. You have to have that, So anyway, yeah, moral of the story, you got to have a strong set of reasons that are highly believable to you. That's the thing. It's like a different set of reasons for every individual, right? Like, do you like cars at all?
I do.
What cars to you would you consider like a dream car? Something that if you could, It's got, what do you got there? Is
A
that a G-Wagon?
G-Wagon.
Dude, and think about that. Like, what is that, G63?
Yeah.
It's not even like a Mansory one or a Brabus one. It's just a G63.
Yeah.
That's like a $200,000, maybe at most $300,000 car. As a dream car, it's like, let's say you needed 20 to 30% down on that. And just to acquire the car, it might cost you like, let's say $50,000 down.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a measly $50,000 and a couple grand a month to be able to acquire something as your phone background.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that step of actualizing something that you want to have exist. And think about this, having money be what prevents the thing being materialized. To me, I interpret that as, I'm not bigger than stuff. You're telling me like I can't go buy a fucking watch? Like I'm not able to materialize a watch? You know, I'm not able to materialize like a fleet of cars. You know, I'm not bigger than a house. You know, like, dude, I'm a fucking living being. You know, like you're telling me I'm smaller than like a bag that my girl wants. You know, it's like, to me, that's a deeply unsettling mindset to fall victim to this worldview that I'm smaller than stuff, you know? And as a result of that, as an example of a belief, I'll never let stuff. I love going out there and getting those things that, to respect to the stuff, are sometimes bigger than where I currently am as a person. And as a result of that, I just deploy this like relentless drive, you know, from that worldview of like, I'm not bigger than a watch, you know, are you shitting me? And it's such a deeply unsettling feeling to think otherwise. But think about how many people are smaller than stuff. You know, one car, you know, one watch, one just sum of money. And the best part is there's so much money that exists. Most people never go look at the M2 money chart, which here in the United States represents the total amount of dollars that exist that are in circulation. And here's the even crazier part. If you look up, yeah, you can ask ChatGPT, you can ask Google, how many dollars exist physically and how many dollars exist digitally. And that's just dollars, right? And then you go look at every other currency that exists. Euro. What do you guys even use over there in Australia? What do you call it?
Australian dollar.
So you guys have the Australian dollar. How many of those are in circulation?
No idea.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you don't even know how much money there
It's
is
just
for you
numbers
to
on a
capture.
screen. Yeah.
It's like when I looked up the amount of dollars, just US dollars that existed, and I took the amount that I wanted to capture and divided it by the amount of dollars that existed, the fraction of 1% that it was like point fuckloads of zeros and then a one. And again, I just thought to myself, I'm like, you telling me I can't capture that fucking small of a percentage of dollars? You know, there's so fucking many of them.
It's too much out there, right?
Think about it. It's like all you really got to do is just provide enough of a valuable service or product, something that helps the earth and the people who are buying it, because it's people who have your money, you know? So you got to have something that helps people. And you're telling me you can't capture a measly 12 mil a year, you know, $1 million of these dollars in a month when there's so many fucking dollars? It just doesn't make any sense. So from that perspective, right, that's an example of like the right types of beliefs that you start to build. Beliefs and data are what drive behavior, okay? So the wrong people, they have all these like fucked up beliefs and fucked up worldviews, and they feed themselves data that inhibits growth rather than easily encourages growth. You understand? So it's like usually the biggest issue when you look at like the wrong people, they're in their own way in all kinds of ways, right? And they have to first unlearn and like replace. Have you ever seen Indiana Jones?
Yeah.
You remember that movie?
Yeah.
One of the first ones I watched when I was younger. I think it was the literal first one I ever watched. There was this scene where he was in like a cave, I think is what it was. and there was this gold trophy. You remember that? Like gold fucking whatever it was. I think it was like a monkey or something, like a gold monkey. And he had a bag of sand, and he had to fill the sand up and try to like weigh it out to be the exact weight of that like gold little monument thing. And he had to swap it out. And if he didn't swap it out with the exact same weight, that giant rock came rolling down the hill and was going to crush him. And he did actually fail to swap it out with the right weight. And the big rock did come tumbling down, but thankfully didn't kill him. Anyway, a lot of people, they have something when we talk about attachment to a specific worldview or belief system that's not actively benefiting you. They, as a result of that attachment, they fail to swap it out with something that's equally as like believable, right? They can hear certain things that people say and they might think of it as like logically comprehensible to them, or sometimes like something that maybe even emotionally resonates. But beliefs cause wars. You know, beliefs drive people to quite literally defend life and death. You know, and if you think about it like that, the things that you need to believe in to go make a fuckload more money have to have such like deep rooted importance to you in order for you to go out there and actually capture that revenue you're after. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of sputter out along the way and end up one of those people that just gets comfortable at a certain revenue milestone and, you know, ends up one of those folks that just hits a couple $100,000 instead of the big $1 million months. You know what I mean?
One thing as well that I understood at some point, that we're all like computers. And in many cases, you have the wrong programming, or you have kind of like a virus that you need to get rid of. And you have to do whatever you can to make sure that you integrate that new version of you that you're trying to bring into reality. That's why I always have this, and I'm constantly looking. I'm an 8-figure founder and investor. Vibes Creative makes 1 million USD per month. I'm the luckiest man alive. I always repeat that to myself. And when things, guess what? And somehow I keep getting lucky. Yeah. I work extremely hard and I do everything to put myself in the best position to win. And every time something happens in my favor, I keep reminding everyone, I'm the luckiest man alive. And I remind my team, I pass all these beliefs on people around me. I've been very intentional now, curating a team of 8 players like you often describe, and making sure that everyone understands at Vibes Creative, where we operate at a world-class level, and we're the luckiest people alive. Anytime something good happens, I always tell them, remember, who's the luckiest people alive? And they now say it. And initially, it took time, you know, to get them to fully integrated, and now they do it on their own as well. Yeah,
because sometimes it's those like you got to see it to believe it situations. Yes. And to your point, like when you initially say that, you just sound like a fucking hippie woo-woo spiritual person that's doing the manifestation thing, which not everybody believes in.
Hey, real quick, if you're a founder, CEO, or business owner looking to build a personal brand, scale your business, and become a great leader, I've been curating all the best lessons, tactics, and strategies that I've learned from 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs and my own business journey into the ultimate playbook to help you accomplish just that. So if you're keen to get them straight into your inbox, sign up for our newsletter in the link down below. Now back to the episode.
So when you have a belief that you think could benefit you, okay, like that one right there, which you've seen benefit in, and you're wondering like how I can get, in your case, some staff to integrate that same belief system, and you don't want to wait in order for them to see it to then inherit it as a belief, there's a great book as an example. You got to seek data. There's a great book. It's called 38 Letters from John D. Rockefeller.
I've been reading it.
Okay. That book is so fucking good. And, you know, for everybody who doesn't know, which I'd be shocked if you don't know, John D. Rockefeller is one of the richest people in America's history. He ran a company called Standard Oil, which was one of the very few companies here in the United States that had to get broken up under our monopoly laws from how serious that guy was running train on the entire fucking oil industry at the time. And anyway, John D. Rockefeller wrote 38 individual letters to his son. And one of those letters was on creating luck. And there were certain things in that book that I read where I was thinking to myself as I read it, this is profound that one of the richest people in America's history, way back in the early 1900s and late 1800s, believed the exact same things that I currently have as beliefs. It validated my worldviews that much further. And one of those specific letters, I'm sure you read it if you're reading the book, was on luck.
Yep.
And he had talked about the importance of creating our own luck. And he had essentially just in that specific letter to his son reinforced the fact that, I believe through a story about Abraham Lincoln, if I'm not mistaken, and his persistence to, Abraham Lincoln was one of our presidents here in the United States. And he'd told the story about how much failure he had experienced. And then eventually he had become the president of the United States. And he had just talked about this relentless pursuit of action and, result-oriented action at that eventually creates our own luck. But to be clear, the point I'm attempting to make is like, I deeply believe in listening to people who are, in this case, one of the richest people in the world, let alone the United States, that earned so much in a period of time that I view it way harder to have gotten richer. I know I wasn't alive back then, obviously, but it still feels like it would have been a whole lot fucking harder to get rich back then comparatively to what it's like to get rich today with AI and the internet and all the opportunities that that's provided to us. But the point is, he talked about the power of luck and how to create it. And data can be what reinforces a belief. You see what I mean? Generally, when somebody proposes something as something for you to believe, you don't just immediately inherit it unless there's something that you seek. Like, how many times have you heard somebody talk about seeing aliens, right? Or like, how many times have you seen, even here in the US, they've put out propaganda recently from like our United States military about different UFOs and like visuals that are like always some fucked up distorted video about a spacecraft, and there's always stories from some random crazy looking older guy or girl that's like, yeah, I worked in this like facility for the government, like I fucking reverse engineered these spacecrafts and there was an alien inside of it. It's like, how little does anybody actually believe in that shit? It's like the data, to be fair, of those stories from people who have, actually apparently worked in these facilities, that persuades some people, right? But like, why hasn't it persuaded you and I?
Because I haven't seen it myself.
Well, that's what it takes for some people. It takes seeing it in order to actually believe it. But it's also important to note, there may be a piece of data out there that you and I eventually see that might not be seeing it. That's just a new random piece of data that you and I haven't thought through yet. That when it comes across our senses, we interpret it and we're like, I'm a believer now, And that's the thing. It's like, when you're trying to inherit a belief that is beneficial to you, it's important to seek data until you genuinely believe it, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who have heard that same concept of like, oh, manifest a great life by like repeating things and like putting it as your background, and like, they just think it's hippie bullshit, But at the same time, there's enough people out there clearly who have watched like The Secret or like certain movies like that are like, that's enough for me, that's my belief system. But my point is like, dude, that's a beneficial worldview to have, to believe that you're a lucky individual, because how the brain works, we're going to have an opportunity to see things that will inspire and make luck real for us. But if we don't have that worldview, we're not going to see those things. Yeah, you familiar with that lesson from Tony Robbins where he says, look around the room and see anything that's the color red? And then he's like, all right, now tell me everything that was green. And then the person he asked is like, well, I don't fucking know. You told me to look for everything red. And he's like, all right, now look around the room and tell me everything you see that's green. And you only see what you're trying to see.
Yes.
You only hear what you're trying to hear. You reinforce whatever beliefs you have. So moral of the story is, if you know that there's a specific set of beliefs as somebody who's way fucking richer than you, or just getting way better results than you are, regardless of what you think about them, I potentially want to consider like, what data am I lacking that would help me inherit that belief system so I can go out there and get a bigger result. That's a big part of $1 Million Months. I'll give you an example, right? So the 12 mil a year, that's all $1 Million Months are. Here in the United States, the US, we have a lot of different little government entities. And one of these specific entities, they label any business that makes less than $40 million a year as a small business. So it's like, think about that as an example of a piece of data. When I think to myself, So you're telling me $1 million months are hard, but yet my fucking government's sitting here telling me, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, from a perspective of the US Bureau of Labor Statistics saying that 0.1% of businesses hit it, that's an earnings disclaimer. You know, that's me attempting to tell you, like, I'm not sitting here telling you you're gonna make fucking buku bucks watching this video. It's a small chance, and that chance is that chance. I mean, that's the stats right there for you. That's real. That's true. But at the same time, what's real and true is apparently a small business makes less than $40 million a year. You're telling me I'm gonna be a fucking small business forever? Right, I was at dinner with a guy the other day doing 42 mil a year. He had an info business doing 42 mil a year, sales trainer. He was talking about getting to 100 mil. He only has 2.5x to go to get to 100 mil. Think about that. He's no longer a small business. There's all kinds of examples that you can seek, whether it be like the John D. Rockefeller example, where you can see a guy who's one of the richest people on earth when he was alive, still to date one of the richest people on earth. Even though he's dead, his money still lives longer than most people. Point I'm trying to make is like him validating beliefs, right? Different government statistics can sometimes validate the beliefs. Sometimes you look at somebody who you just think is a fucking idiot that makes more money than you. And you're like, dude, if that fucking guy can do it, you're telling me I can't do it? You know, there's all kinds of data points out there that you need to inherit. And I can't stress it enough. The wrong people, they never try to do that, man. The people who stay stuck, they don't have that system. You know, the people who do adapt and solve problems quickly and earn more and maximize who they are and have like these dynamic characteristics and identities, those people, they all think like that, dude. They all have that worldview.
Now, some of the things that you just cover as well, where, well, you should be making more money because you're going to have these unexpected expenses as well, right? Now, let's tie that with what are the actual expenses to foresee and profit when you are looking to hit $1 million months in terms of, you know, sales team, ad spend, marketing, delivery.
Yeah, that's
like,
a lot of them right there.
Like what's the average that you see in terms of percentages?
It really depends on the model, you know, like a lot of the info product businesses, as an example, they can see upwards of like 50 to 70% margins, give or take how lean they run. You know, different product-based businesses. Like we have a guy, he sells hyperbaric chambers. He hit $1 million a month. His margins are more in like the 20-ish% range, like maybe on a good month, 30%. Typically, you obviously have cost of ad spend in most instances. Sometimes you don't. Like sometimes people get that call that I was on right before we came over here. That's a new Inner Circle member. He's in the trading niche, but he has a sophisticated demographic he sells to. He's not one of those guys that's like teaching like call outs and like base level trading courses. He does 2.2 mil a month, all organically off of YouTube. He's got about 250,000 plus subscribers. And there's not any paid advertising cost that he's incurring. Although to be fair, he's going to start. So he's going to start incurring that expense. It's mainly sales teams. You got commissions. You've got ad spend and any other marketing cost. Typically you have a good chunk of payroll when you're hitting $1 million months. Again, depends on how lean you're running and what your model is. If you have physical products, because we do have a lot of people that watch us as well that are high ticket product businesses, and they obviously have like physical goods, their cost of goods sold, their COGS. From there, taxes are a fucking huge one. You know, like I spend $115,000 a month currently in taxes, and that's projected to only go up. You know, so it's like there's a little cash cow here for the good old government. Anyway, I can't stress it enough. Like there's always some random shit that you could factor in on top of that, give or take what you do. So I just arguably give or take the business some insurance cost, but you know, you're just getting kind of into smaller like nickel and dime expenses, softwares, you know, couple $1,000 a month, give or take the business and what they're paying. But I mean, I can't necessarily think that there's much bigger ones than that besides lifestyle cost. I mean, most of these guys are obviously siphoning off a big chunk towards just living well. So factor that out of the equation if you want to take it against your margin. But arguably that's more of, you know, not technically taking off your gross margin unless you're expensing it against the business. You know what I mean?
You obviously across a decade that you've been doing this, you have experimented dramatically with many different types of pieces of content, right? There's a trend right now with long form content specifically. I'm curious to hear from you. What are the best uses you have seen with podcast content in order to hit $1 million months?
Dude, I'll give you a good one. We took an hour and 55-minute podcast, posted it directly to Facebook, distributed it towards people who don't know us. Watching a full hour and 55-minute video, 100% video viewer that was retargetable. You could also retarget 95% video viewers. It was costing $1.55 to get somebody to watch that full hour and 55 minutes. So long story short, for like a couple dollars or like under $2 to get somebody, what did I say it cost? To be clear, I think it was like $1.20. I might have said $1.55. Excuse me. I was thinking of the length of the podcast. So again, hour and 55-minute podcast. It was like, I think like $1.17, $1.20 to get somebody to watch the full hour of it. We could retarget up to 95% of it. And then we would retarget those people specifically with direct response ads. And we do a lot of content first ad strategies. So moral of the story is we'll take content both on the front end and distribute it to people who don't know us. And we'll retarget thresholds way less than just the 100% threshold. But the point I'm attempting to make is like sub $2 to get somebody to watch that fucking long of a podcast. I'll spend that any day, dozens and hundreds, thousands of times over in a day if I can, especially towards people who have no idea who I am. And I'll retarget people who watch well below that threshold too. Point being, you can post up to 60-minute videos now direct to Instagram as an example currently. Who knows if they keep that or not. Point I'm attempting to make is very simple. These podcasts are very beneficial for both front end and they're very beneficial for the back end. So one of the strategies that we've recently been trying to push and create some propaganda around the hammer them strategy. So we'll take people who do something like book a call, and prior to the call, we'll distribute both short form and long form content in front of that individual. And it's a small pocket audience. Depending on the scale that you operate at, you might have to supplement it and make it a little larger. But people who operate at scale, like they'll typically see, as an example, let's say you get 150 calls every 72 hours, right? And your average call time from the time they book to the time the call happens is that 3-day window, that 72-hour window. We'll take as much fucking long form content as we can, ideally about a dozen to 2 dozen different videos. And we'll also take a bunch of short form content, ideally like 30 to 50 videos minimum. And we put what's called a frequency target on these specific people in that window. So for short form, as an example, we typically try to see a frequency of anywhere from about 15 to 20. We want an ideal amount of content to reach these people in that tight time frame. And we'll do that with long form content too. As a result of this, people typically show up at a higher rate. They're more excited. They're further along in the sales process. They're more probable to do pay in fulls and just buy, period. And sales cycles are also reduced because typically organically, like you'll notice, the more people consume your content, especially longer content, the more probable they are to purchase. The downside of the organic content sales cycle is that it's long, drawn out, and generally unknown and unmeasurable. It's hard to tell without asking. And even when you ask, you don't necessarily get an honest answer, right? Because people aren't necessarily aware of like, oh yeah, dude, I've watched your content for X amount of months or X amount of weeks, but you do generally hear it's a long, drawn out duration of time. What we try to do with content ad strategies, whether it's content first ad strategies where we lead with content, or strategies like the hammer them strategy where it's more of a, they took a key action via direct response and now we're trying to hammer the fuck out of them. We are leveraging content, just like podcasts as an example, to consistently get people to show up with higher buying intent, okay? And we are replicating the organic sales cycle, but in a substantially shorter duration of time. That's the whole intention of content ad strategies. Can't stress enough how critical podcasts are specifically in that process. A lot of people really struggle to sit down and just make content by themselves. They have a hard time just looking at a camera and just yapping for however long they can sit there and yap. Now, me personally, I'm a D1 yapper. You know, I'm A class with just sitting down yapping, whether it's me or talking to somebody else. However, it's a lot easier. Like as an example, there's probably even some things that we've talked about here today that I would not have conversed about if I was just sitting down talking to a camera individually. Thus, the value of podcasts. So podcasts can also drive a strong authority bias relative to the niche and what podcast it is. But here's the cool part. Like, you even have to have a pop-in podcast that you're on to be able to leverage that content inside of your sales process. I think it's just one of those things. It's kind of like I always say, sales is the equivalent of breathing in business. As soon as you stop breathing, you die. A lot of people don't put any time and attention onto sales, and thus they make very little money. I don't know why people view, if you remember at the beginning of the video, I mentioned the cohesion of sales and marketing. I don't view them as separate. Like, I believe marketing, in terms of how people interpret it, is just one-to-many sales, right? I believe it's the modern mechanism to drive attention instead of doing the outdated, like, cold calls or door-to-door, like all the high effort, one-to-one, super cold mechanisms of sales. Marketing, especially content, is just a modern, highly efficient sales mechanism. That's a one-to-many sales process. And as a result of viewing it that way, you'd get on as many podcasts as you could possibly get on. And not only would you do that, you would leverage those podcasts in your marketing via content ad strategies to help further increase the odds that when people do have that sales conversation, they actually close. So I think they're really important.
And ultimately, is just getting those people to be better framed, right? Leading to the sales process, and ultimately just feeling like they're already sold, right? A lay down deal, as you will say. And in fact, I bought from your program. And the reason I bought was because of long form content, which I will say that you essentially have a podcast. It's just on a different format, but what you're doing is just talking in a long form content in front of camera with a great microphone. So I call that podcasting solo style episodes or authority style episodes. So I'm curious to hear as well from you, because ultimately that's what sold me on you, was just consuming a bunch of content, like enough for me to be like, well, I can't keep consuming. I need to take some action here, right? But I'm curious to hear as well, because you have made a clear big move in the last 12 months in going all into long form content, right? So what has been the result of you doing podcast style content?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, my original intention was I had always made content mainly for my education company and towards what I would consider like a lesser financially qualified individual. I didn't ever really try to go out there and vocalize what I simply put, I didn't believe that my clients would actually watch like my content, you know? So I never actually intentionally made over my decade-long career content for my ideal client. What we had always done to get our ideal client was video pitches. And we did this concept called value-driven follow-up as well. So we would just make a video, we'd send it to a person via DMs and email. We would follow up religiously once a week for the people that we really wanted to work with. And we would just consistently put our expertise on display through like SOPs and unlisted videos and testimonials, and just trying to get them onto calls. And that's how we got damn near every big client that we've got. The process was simple, like, and as a result of that, I just didn't believe that they were like on social media watching these videos. So last July, it's literally been 1 year, I had just kind of run a test. I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I'm going to make content for my ideal client. I'm going to talk about hitting $1 million months. I'm going to talk about the lessons of hitting $1 million months from all these people that we've helped. And I'm just going to see as a test if this shit can actually drive some clients into the business. Let's run a test. Let's see how it goes. So really simple for me. It takes about 2 hours a week. Every Sunday, I sit down from generally 2 to 4 in the afternoon, and I'll film 2 videos. And the videos are always super easy to come up with topics for, because all I do is reflect on what's going on in my clients' businesses, both good and bad. And I sit down on YouTube and I just yap about it. And I talk about the lessons. And I generally hold back a decent amount of information, but I give out more than enough information for it to be valuable and for people to get results with it. I think that's one of the most important parts is like result-oriented communication. I'm trying to help people be able to take an action with what I talk about, make some money with it ideally, and be able to play with house money when they actually go to hire me or buy some stuff from me. Now, this is actually a very interesting result that we produced. Kind of shocking, to be honest with you. Instead of getting my ideal client from all of these videos that I produced, the shocking part was I'd gotten far more very high level education company buyers instead. So I had gotten over the entire last year a handful of like actual ideal clients as a result of putting out this content, which relative to what we charge people, to be fair, made it very well worth it, just considering it was 2 hours a week. So doing it 52 weeks now in a row is 104 hours just for simple math. I'm sure there's probably maybe a dozen or so hours on top of that for an occasional session that took 3 hours instead of just the even 2. But yeah, dollar value per hour wise, it's been a phenomenal return just to consistently, sit down and do this. I think it's so fun. It's also gotten a profound network effect, which I could argue is cooler. I've gotten so many people that have, reached out to me and told me about the impact that just this free content has had on them. And the types of people that watch it, to my shock, were, again, it proved my belief system wrong. They were the right types of people. And there were so many more people than I ever thought that gave a fuck about this set of lessons that I just consistently hand down. That was the most shocking part. Time and time again, every video, I get more people that continue to subscribe to the channel, and like the network effect grows. It's really fun to think, more so than anything else. Like just yesterday, actually, I had this reflection. One of these guys that I became aware of when I very first got into entrepreneurship, his name was Steve. Rest in peace to Steve. He had died on Monday. And Steve was a guy, he had written a book. He had made a good amount of content in his life. And I had connected with Steve a handful of times throughout my career. And he was quite a helpful guy. And I thought to myself, I was like, Steve's legacy is in his content now. And it's in what he's documented, and he's taken these lessons and like contributed it to this just collective knowledge base of like YouTube and everywhere else that he's hosted it. And I thought that was so cool. Like when people talk about legacy and leaving an impact, or like, dude, think about this, like the John D. Rockefeller book we were talking about. I bet with a lot of money that John D. Rockefeller would have filmed fucking content.
He would have
sat
had
down
yeah.
and like, I really do believe that, because it's hard to describe. Like, I'm not trying to virtue signal in any way, shape, or form and sit here and say like I don't do it for money. I absolutely do it for money with like the routine, and I love doing it for money. I love money so much. But again, like from a legacy view, like, dude, you and I 100+ years later are reading letters that John D. Rockefeller wrote his son. What are people gonna do with these videos? They're timeless videos. You know what I mean? I'm not teaching lessons that are just for here and now. There's things in there that I'm teaching that I like genuinely think people 20, 30, who knows, maybe even 100 years from now might find value in. And I think that part's really cool. I also think, again, when I talk about network effect, the people I've gotten to meet, like it is profound, the people that have bought from me and have not bought from me, that are already at $1 million months, looking to tack on the next $1 million a month, doing a couple $100,000 a month, looking to get to $1 million a month, that I've just gotten to meet, have conversations with, get to know. I don't know what people place as a value on network, but to me, it is a hard sell to sit here and try to justify that that's not hyper valuable in itself. Because how hard is it to just go out there in the world and just randomly meet people who make a fuckload of money and are willing to share those types of lessons? Dude, I get people that when they meet me, they feel like they already know me. And so we skip past the part of like this, like the little bullshit, like small talk, like get to know each other stuff. You already know what I'm about. You already have gotten to know me. You already have like a general perspective of my personality if you watched a few of my long form videos. And as a result, dude, the network effect is so profound. I've had so many more conversations over the last year about things that I love to fucking talk about, which is really just money and making a fuckload more money and all the cool stuff that money does. And that would never happen if I didn't make a fuckload of content and commit to that routine and that schedule. So it's helped me get richer. It's helped me get a whole bunch of other people way richer, which obviously directly correlates to the level of rich that I can get to. It's added tremendous value to my network. I've known and become aware of so many more people that I never would have gotten the opportunity to meet and connect with. And like, again, you get that immediate like good value connection from people because they watch your channel. And then lastly, you get that effect that truly I never really thought I cared about. Like you do get like a legacy component out of it, where if for some godforsaken reason I just died, I'd be like, I feel very satisfied to a degree with what I was able to leave behind in a very like well-documented way that just like John D. Rockefeller's letters, dude, like really think about that. After you read that book, it just makes you think like this was a real genuine dude who was just super fucking rich and very competitive and very aggressive about making a bunch of money. I truly believe he would be so happy, like genuinely happy to know that you and I sitting here right now over 100 years later
Talking
are getting
about it.
value from what he wrote to his son, dude. That's so cool, you know? I don't mean legacy in some weird way. Like, I just think that's so cool, you know, that you could have that effect from documented information. You get what I'm saying? I love that.
You, based on everything we have covered now,
Yeah.
and you work with industry leaders like Cody Sanchez, Ty Lopez,
Yeah.
and many others that use podcasts and long form content right now
they
to pass well over $1 million months. So based on that, do you believe that business owners, founders that are not using podcasting or long form style content are leaving money on the table?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like the businesses that have the highest friction right now are not leveraging content, whether it be short form, long form, but long form especially. Long form content is where, like, listen to this. I think through the COVID era, when TikTok was really popping and short form content went on the rise and became the dominant preferred consumable, I think that eroded the amount of value that people are getting from content as a result of it being so short. And the pendulum swung back to long form content and people having a preference to consume it because they realize that there's a lot more meaning and value from things that are, you know, historically perceived as like long and drawn out during that short form preferential era. It's not like short form isn't still hitting. Short form still hits. It's great for discovery. And arguably at the end of the day, whether it be YouTube or shorts exist or TikTok or Instagram, wherever else you're posting short form nowadays, the bias is clear. Like short form's good for discovery. Long form is incredible for nurturing buying intent and that key like relationship development that's necessary to actually convert people, you know? Typically the people who struggle the most are the people who don't do any type of long form content. The people who have a hard time, simply put, are the ones who are biasing exclusively towards short form, or even worse, just not making content at all.
This is this or that segment. So you just choose one or the other.
Sure.
Tea or coffee?
Oh, I don't drink coffee at all. I just do tea.
Sushi or steak?
I eat steak way more than I eat sushi, but sushi's pretty good.
Expert or jack of all trades?
I think you should be good at many things, but you can commit to many things over a long duration of time and still be an expert at a lot of stuff. So I guess ultimately expert, but you know, if you're going to be a jack of all trades, at least commit to everything and be great at it.
Product or service business?
When you're first getting started, service businesses are much easier and have a lot less friction. And as you scale, I also think service businesses become a little more complex. But at the same time, you know, product businesses, they have a lot less margin in most instances. So I don't know. I guess your own preference. I like service businesses.
CEO or founder?
Oh, I don't understand why the word founder is like a popular word. I mean, I understand the difference, right? Like you can be a founder and staff a CEO, but I always identify as a CEO.
CEO or investor?
Yeah, great question. That one in particular, there's that Robert Kiyosaki quadrant from Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think everybody eventually becomes an investor, but you can do both at the same time. Arguably, you should do both at the same time, you know? I know a lot of people that make a fuckload of money from small businesses, and then they plow that money from the businesses into investing, and generally they still do both, you know? But inevitably, you should ultimately become an investor when you age and no longer want to work for active income. So I guess it depends on how old you are.
Instagram or TikTok?
I'm an Instagram guy, but to be fair, TikTok's pretty fucking cool. You know, I scroll TikTok more than I do on Instagram because I find funnier stuff on TikTok. Like TikTok's a good like entertainment platform for me. Instagram's cool for what I call conditioning. Like I've conditioned my feed on Instagram to be the things that I want to see for like, all the rich person stuff I like. I don't know. They're kind of neck and neck.
You gotta pick one.
I would say Instagram. I'd say Instagram. If I had to pick,
Instagram or YouTube?
I'd go YouTube.
YouTube or X?
It's tough. I go YouTube.
YouTube or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn's a fucking hellhole. I think that it's all spam. I think that LinkedIn is dead internet theory. You could nuke LinkedIn off the face of the earth, and I think we'd actually be in a better place. I'm obviously going to bias towards YouTube.
Photos or videos?
Videos.
Short form or long form video content?
Long form.
Newsletters or podcasting?
Podcasts.
My boy. Organic or paid marketing?
Big paid marketing guy. But shout out to the people doing a lot organically too. They both technically work, but if I had to pick, I'd pick paid.
1 million followers with low conversions or 1K raving fans?
1K raving fans for sure.
Building a talent or hiring a talent?
You can't do both. I mean, it depends on where you're at financially, but if you can hire A players, then I'd hire them all day. Easier to hire than build them.
A talent at a high price tag or multiple cheap C talent?
Hey, A players at a high price.
Property investing or shares?
Dude, I invest so much more into equities than I do into property, so I'm definitely going to say shares.
Shares or crypto?
Shares for sure.
Shares of Bitcoin?
I'm still going to go shares, Controversial, but I'm going to go shares.
Shares or buying businesses?
I mean, shares, yeah, I'm still going to say shares.
Building a business or buying a business?
Depends on where you're at financially. Most people, I'd build a business. I'd build a business over buying it. But again, if you're like super fucking rich, or if you're in a good position of leverage, you can buy a business and have it play out better, but build a business.
Passion 6-figure business or stressful 8-figure business?
How much are you netting in the 8-figure business?
Not gonna answer. I'm just gonna let you choose one.
I don't think you have to be stressed to make a fuckload of money, and I think you can reduce stress, so I'm going to go with the 8-figure business. I have more money to be able to reduce the stress.
The most important question, sales or marketing?
Well, if I had to bias towards one or the other, I think they're both, but I'm going to say marketing.
Now, Jeremy, specific questions.
Uh-huh.
Rolex or Patek?
I don't have a Patek. I have more Rollies than I have Pateks, so I guess I'm going to have to say Rolly, but I mean, I don't know. That's tough. I have 2 Richard Milles. I have a bunch of APs, and then there's a guy here in Miami. He said Rolexes are great for filling the watch box, and I thought that was hilarious. But I guess I'm gonna have to say Rolex just based on what I own.
Rolex or AP?
AP for sure.
AP or Richard Mille?
Richard Mille.
Ferrari or Lambo?
I can't fit in a Lambo. The windshield's angled too low, and yeah, I've had 3 Ferraris, so Ferrari.
Ferrari or Porsche?
Now, I sold my Ferraris, and I currently have 2 Porsches, so I'm going to say Porsche.
Porsche or McLaren?
Oh, man, it's a tough call. They're so different, but I'll tell you, there's no car I've loved greater than that 750S, so I'm going to say the McLaren. But the Porsche is such a good car, to be fair. That's a tough choice.
After making millions of dollars, what's the most painful lesson you have learned growing an 8-figure business?
Unless money has meaning, it's tough to sacrifice everything that it takes to make a fuckload of money until you give it meaning. And time again, you'll look at what you do, the level of stress you endure, and you'll ask yourself occasionally, is it worth it? And then you'll have all kinds of moments where you realize it's way more than worth it. But there are some painful things along the way that you endure, but those painful things arguably make you who you are. And that's, in my opinion, well worth the character development. But man, some of the challenges you face as a business person are some of the most painful and high stress things that you will ever experience, besides physical pain, to be fair. But yeah, I would just say the journey of entrepreneurship can be a drag, you know, but at the same time, a majority of it is fucking awesome. The highs and lows.
What's the biggest difference between making 7 and 8 figures?
Options and choices. You have so much more that you can do. Everything goes faster too. The speed in which you can materialize life and solutions and the next thing is so much greater at 8 figures comparatively to 7 figures. It's so cool. There's such a profound difference, dude.
In terms of something tactical, what would you say is the biggest tactic that someone can implement to go from 7 figures to 8 figures?
Potentially some of those first 3 things that we talked about, either better offers, higher prices, that next channel, that next strategy that you're currently leaving on the table. There's a lot of things that you could arguably do in order to get there, but moral of the story is it's typically what you're not doing that's holding back your revenue more so than what it is that you're doing now.
What are the 3 most powerful questions that a CEO can ask himself that will help him crack $1 million months?
Who do I need to hire that's not a part of the team? You could also technically ask, like, do I have the right people in order to get there, for that same type of question, just rephrased differently. The math question is one of my favorites. Like, have you just done the math on what it takes in terms of total customers, the math of like reverse engineering funnels that you currently have to see how much you need to spend and how many people you need to put through it in order to get it to work. That's a big part of it. Just like math related questions specific to your current conversion mechanisms. And then an amplification question, something along the lines of how could I amplify what's already working? How could I repeat a successful action at a greater level than what I'm currently executing it now? Those things typically have profound effect for me every time I ask them.
If you're gone tomorrow, all your YouTube videos, podcasts, long form content, everything gets taken away from you, what are the 3 insights that you will leave behind for your younger self to be able to hit 8 figures faster?
Get other people richer for you to get richer. It takes the same amount of effort to be small as it does to go big. Solve problems faster. There's always a faster thing that you could do that could take you to that next level, and you're probably not aware of it. You don't know what you don't know. I'd probably just pass down that quote to simplify it. You don't know what you don't know. And I would point to the CIA talk that the guy gave. The head of the CIA when 9/11 happened here in the United States was asked, how in the world did we not know this was going to happen? And he said, in life, there's known knowns, meaning the things that we know that we know. There's known unknowns, the things that we know that we do not know. And there's unknown unknowns, the things that we don't know that we don't know. And this was an unknown unknown. Long story short, yeah, you just don't know what you don't know, you know? Seek info. Typically, your next self is on the other side of something new that you learn.
There's a book that you recently recommended that is tied to this, Thinking in Bets.
Great book.
It has rapidly become the second best book I've read this year, behind Mr. Rockefeller.
Dude, yeah, that book's awesome too. Thinking in Bets is great. What a profound book. Thinking in probabilities, being able to understand when to go all in. I have a few videos on my YouTube channel where I talk about gambling and how I believe that advertising is gambling as an example. It's a profound way to think. I think it's like a base level of thinking that every business person has, whether they're aware of it or not. But yeah, great book. Absolute must read if you haven't read it yet.
And it's tied to what you were saying as well, that the unknowns, right? That always
100%.
have to be taken into consideration, and ultimately you will never be able to make a decision or take an action having all the information, because there's always the unknowns and the luck factor. Great
So
book.
true.
So I promise you, if you go and read those 2 books that we cover, you will get a ton of value.
Yeah.
What's the worst business advice you have ever received?
You know, I can't say I actively think about it. I hope that I've suppressed it to not behave with it. If I had to come up with one that I've heard over the years, I've heard certain people like justify staying at the level they're at, and they claim that if you go bigger, like more problems present themselves. And it's typically not true. Like there's problems whether you stay the same, go smaller, go bigger. And I don't think the problems necessarily grow in size as you grow bigger, but there's a lot of people I've met throughout my career that consistently try to justify staying at whatever level they're currently at. And I think that is a very problematic worldview to have. You know, I'm not convinced of that, but I've heard many people talk about that.
What's the best business advice you have ever received?
You know, my very first serious boss I had, he was my second marketing job, and he's a billionaire now. And he's, profoundly shaped who I am today because he had recruited me when I was 19 years old. And the worldview that he helped pass down to me was going bigger is as easy as going small. And I didn't necessarily understand what he meant at the time because obviously I was just working a job. But time and time again, how it would apply even when I worked for him towards the later stages of like when I first started to kind of understand the lesson and its applicability to life and business. It's very easy. It technically takes the same amount of effort, takes the same amount of hours in most instances to just produce a far greater result as it does to produce a little tiny result. And moral of the story is it's profound how much that specific worldview has shaped the level of action that I consistently take and that I encourage others to take. And there are many other great pieces of advice that he handed down to me. But time and time again, it all comes down to that. Just go bigger, you know?
We cover as well, you mentioned having very strong reasons as to why you want to hit $1 million months and beyond. What are your reasons?
Great question. So first of all, the investment amount. So what I need to invest month over month, I deeply believe in having a $100 million target relative to the 4% rule. 200K a month, 20 years in a row, 10% annualized return. I pay a fuckload in taxes to be able to do that and just to earn what I earn in a month and in a year. It's profound how much taxes alone have actually make me wanted to earn more money just so I could net more money overall, which in turn makes me pay more taxes, which in turn actually makes me make more and earn more and then pay more. It's an awesome cycle. I initially hated taxes, but surprisingly, taxes have actually been a huge incentive driver for making a fuckload more money. Taking care of my staff. I love having a business that can really make my staff rich. Paid my top sales guy last month $73,000 and some change. Just last month, we had a guy, he works with us. He's my marketing helper. Bought him an Aston Martin, moved him down from one of the northwestern states here called Washington down here to Miami, Florida. Shout out to him. Great guy. And I think it's so cool to be able to have like that spillover effect where like you get rich enough to where everybody around you has a profoundly better life as a result. It is my genuine mission, try to help as many people as I can get a fuckload richer, not just for my own financial upside, because again, I absolutely love money. Money brings out potential in people. Like the journey of getting richer has been the journey of personal development for me. And again, I absolutely love money. I love the stuff that I get to buy. I love the things I get to do as a result of money. I love jets. I love physical things. You know, I love helping people. I love philanthropic causes. I love the speed in which I can materialize life. I love the impact I can have. I love how many options I have when I go to do literally anything. But truly one of the coolest things, time and time again, is just how cool it is to see the ripple effect in helping others get richer too, because I can then there's what's that little fork that like you can ding and it vibrates? You know what I'm talking about? It's like a long U and you have a prong and it's made of metal and you hit it against something and it vibrates and it creates an effect of everything around it as a result. And like when you take one of those same exact things, I can't think of the name of this, but it's like this prong that you slap. And again, it just sits there and vibrates. When something else is around it that's not moving, that will start moving as a result of this thing just sitting there and vibrating, and it creates like a little vibrating effect in this. I think it's so cool to have that impact on others because again, money makes every single fucking choice that we ever have in life. So being able to help other people get richer and then seeing what they then turn around and do with a fuckload more money, so cool. You know, it's so cool to be the causation behind that for a lot of people. I find so much joy in that, you know? But yeah, I just absolutely love being rich. I absolutely love money. I think it's so fun just buying a bunch of cool shit, being able to just actualize on potential, you know, being able to help other people get rich as fuck, being able to take care of my family, friends, loved ones, random people to the fullest extent. I think it's our responsibility to get rich because I think rich people are some of the most important people on earth due to the speed in which we can make life better for everybody. I think it is extremely selfish to be impoverished. And I do believe it's a choice. I know that everybody starts in different conditions, but you're a perfect example of that. Came from a third world country in an impoverished family, and you chose, it wasn't random. You chose to be the man you are today. You chose to help people the way that you've done. And again, you've chosen day in and day out, decision by decision, to be rich because you understand the benefits that it has in life. And as a result of that, think about how many people you can go and inspire to do the same thing from those same types of conditions. I've helped people in some of the most bumfuck nations on earth that are way worse off than Venezuela. I'll give you a great example. There was a guy that we had, I don't even remember the country name in Africa. I'd never even heard of it before. Didn't even know it was a fucking country. And I'm pretty geographically well versed. Long story short, this guy, he was making, listen to this, $4,000 a year and being able to somehow live over there, which I don't understand what kind of life that would afford you. But long story short, this guy ended up getting a handful of clients, switched up, was able to make $40,000 a year. His quality of life for what he was able to do for him and like literally everybody around him was insane. This guy was like sending me videos and shit, all kinds of stuff that he was showing me he was doing for his community. He was like building wells, feeding like whole fucking villages of people. He was doing so much to like improve the conditions of everybody around him. And how did he do that? By getting other people richer through marketing services. You understand? It's like, money is so fucking cool, you know? I just think being rich is fucking awesome. I can't imagine being so selfish to not choose to be rich. Time and time again, it's the best fucking decisions you could make.
I would heavily agree with that.
Yeah, fuck you.
What's the best life hack you have found after becoming rich?
I'd say that I called it the compound life when I first started coming up with this. So you can bring everything to you. Like I have my chiropractors come to me, doctors come to me. My fiance had a dentist come to us the other day. I didn't know you could do that. I've had x-rays come to us. I've had, like, again, groceries delivered to us. Obviously maids are awesome. I can't even think of, I mean, dude, there's so much shit that I have come to us. And as a result, it's my barber, like everything, dude, literally everything comes to us. And as a result of that, it's bought back tremendous amounts of time, which is awesome because time is, as people always say, that variable that you don't get back. And literally being richer allows you to buy back time, as people have always talked about. And the crazy part is you don't always have to just use the extra time to go do stuff to get even richer than that. You could just use the time to like sit around and relax or like spend extra time with your loved ones and family. Like there's so much cool shit that just buying back your time affords you, you know? And as a result of that, I think that's probably the coolest hack is through like quote unquote buying back your time. Like, dude, I'll give you a good one. I booked a jet the other day. It's a 4-hour flight and it only saves me 4.5 hours. Okay. The jet was $44,000. Okay. And listen to this, that extra 4.5 hours that I save from not having to go through the traditional like commercial flight process is literally just going to be spent with my grandfather, who's got 2 different types of cancers currently and could die any fucking day. And literally as soon as I land in that place, I have my grandfather picking me up jet side. So I instantly, as soon as I land, get to spend time with my grandfather throughout that remaining evening and the entire next day. And dude, I mean, I don't know what that'll be worth one day. You know, is it worth $44,000 to spend an extra 4.5 hours with your grandfather that you wouldn't have otherwise got to spend? My grandfather for me has had a profound effect on my life. Been one of the only people in my entire family tree that's had like good, genuine, profoundly positive effects on my life. I value my grandfather tremendously. And I think it's worth it. And that's an example where I'm not even using the extra time to make more money, which, to be fair, I have many times over when I've done things like that. But yeah, this is one of those examples where just buying back time allows you to afford something like that. It's pretty fucking cool what you can do with money. I'll tell you that right now.
What is the most underrated thing about becoming rich?
I'd say the status. I think status is so cool. A lot of people like to ignore status because they don't have it. But like, it's remarkable what status does for you in terms of, I'll give you a good example. I was shopping the other day. I walk into a store. There's a guy with a $200,000 Richard Mille. There's a guy with a $400,000. We were in Laurel Piana, if you're familiar with that. And the guy who was at the cash register, he owns a watch business, coincidentally, here in Miami. And he was using I think he said like $100,000 in cash that he had just got from a watch to buy a fuckload of Laurel Piana. So like a money printer is sitting there on the counter. There's 3 people in the store, me, this guy, and this other guy, and 2 of our wives. And long story short, the money counter's just sitting there in the back. Picture a money counter sound in the background, okay? There's 3 guys in there with a couple $100,000 each in watches. And we all look at each other and we all see what each other's wearing. We don't necessarily look at the outfit. In this case, all we do is look at the watches. And each one of us instantly know the level in which each one of us are operating. And each one of us instantly feel like it's a great networking opportunity. We all start talking to each other, but we don't talk to each other about bullshit. Like we don't talk to each other about like stupid little small-minded shit. We instantly just start talking at a high level. Like we're like, hey man, what's going on? Like, love your watch. That's the intro to the conversation. And then from there, it immediately moves into business-oriented conversation about what one another's got going on. That's how we find out the one guy owns the watch business. Both the guy and I who don't own the watch business know the guy who does. We're like, oh shit, you're like so-and-so. And he's like, oh yeah. And then the Laurel Piana sales rep chimes in and she's like, oh, you guys would love to know this other guy. And this other guy, he happened to be a fucking billionaire. And literally we all exchanged phone numbers. I had gone out to a dinner with those guys about a month later with a handful of other dudes that we knew mutually. And dude, like it was just so fucking cool. Like that would never have happened if we all weren't signaling to each other the level that we're operating at through, in this case, the status of a watch. It's like the status of cars, the status of watches, the status of where you live, like the status, to be fair, this is my daily outfit. Like I just wear the same t-shirt, I have the same pair of shorts. I swap in and out watches and shoes. But the point is like even outfits, you know, where you get to go, where you don't get to go, it determines your network and like types of conversations you get to have. And it doesn't matter to everybody, to be fair. I mean, I've had still great conversations with all kinds of people that don't give a fuck at all about my status, not just make it sound like you're not going to have good combos with people just because you don't have a nice watch. But I've had a lot cooler convos and a lot more of those cool convos as a result of status. I think that's the most undermined characteristic that most people never talk about, because status is generally not something that you speak out loud. You know, it's something that you just signal to people through stuff. You know what I mean?
And I completely agree with that, because since I bought my Rolex, it has started so many opportunities that otherwise, even on my way here, I got 2 people, another person wearing a much better watch, and a Richard Mille come and tell me, that's a really nice watch. We just started a conversation because of that, and
that's what most people don't understand. Like they think you just buying a watch to buy a watch, and it's like, no, dude, you're buying a watch to like
the access,
have an opportunity to be like, hey, dude, that's nice. You know, it's a conversation starter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So it has been game changing, honestly. It suggests you get a nice watch because it's that one thing that you can carry everywhere, and it will open opportunities. On this,
very well worth it.
Last 2 minutes, I would love to ask you, what didn't I ask you that could help other CEOs and founders crack $1 million months faster?
Yeah, I mean, pretty easy. There's a few things that I consistently talk about on my channel, like, you know, more like strategy oriented things with marketing, back end selling systems, content first ad strategies, front end selling systems as well. Things like messaging lessons, funnels and conversion mechanism strategies and tactics, sales lessons. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that like tactically and strategically we could have talked about, but yeah, they can find all that kind of stuff on my YouTube channel.
All the links will be down below as usual.
Thanks.
Is there anything else that you would like people to go and inquire or connect with you, Jeremy?
No, I would just leave you with this. Go get rich, or, you know, super selfish not to.
As usual, everything will be down below. If you do enjoy this podcast, if you got any value out of this conversation, just share it with any other founder, CEO, business owner that could also get value out of it. That's all I ask. Other than that, I'll see you on the next episode. And thank you, Jeremy, for making the time to share your insights. I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, man.
Hey legends, my goal with Founders Playbook is to help 1 million entrepreneurs build successful personal brands and businesses so that they can increase their impact and profits. You can support the mission by simply sharing the podcast with other founders and entrepreneurs, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on social media. Let's get to work.